how do we find purpose in pain? Pain is an inevitable part of life, but as believers, we trust that our suffering isn't without purpose. Life is filled with moments of joy and sorrow, and it's often in our most challenging experiences that we find ourselves asking why. Why does God allow us to go through pain? What good can come from our suffering? While these questions may not have easy answers, the Bible reassures us that God is present in our pain, using it to shape us, teach us, and draw us closer to Him. When we encounter pain, our instinct is to escape it, to find comfort, or to distract ourselves until the pain subsides. But what if, instead of running from our suffering, we allowed ourselves to lean into it, trusting that God could bring something beautiful out of our brokenness? Throughout Scripture, we see that pain, though difficult, often serves as a greater purpose in God's plan. Take Joseph, for example. He was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, and unjustly imprisoned. Yet through these trials, God was at work, preparing him for a position of influence where he would ultimately save an entire nation from famine. Joseph's story reminds us that our pain can have a purpose beyond what we can see in the moment. Pain has a unique way of drawing us closer to God. In times of ease and comfort, it's easy to become complacent, relying on our own strength and abilities. But when we face trials, when the ground beneath us shifts and we find ourselves in a place of uncertainty, we're reminded of our need for God. It's in these moments of weakness that we often encounter Him most profoundly. Pain strips away the superficial layers of our lives, revealing what truly matters and bringing us face to face with the Creator. But finding purpose in pain isn't just about our personal growth or spiritual insight. It's also about how God can use our experiences to minister to others. When we've walked through the valley of suffering, we're uniquely equipped to walk alongside others who are going through similar struggles. Our pain gives us empathy, a deep understanding that goes beyond mere words. It allows us to offer comfort and hope to those who are hurting, not from a place of detached sympathy, but from a place of shared experience. As Paul writes in 2 Corinthians 1 verse 4, he conforms us in all our troubles so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God. Our pain, when suffered to God, becomes a powerful tool for ministry. In addition to equipping us to help others, pain can also be a catalyst for deep, transformative change in our own lives. It has a way of forcing us to confront areas where we've grown comfortable or complacent. When everything is going smoothly, it's easy to assume we're on the right path, but pain disrupts our routine, shaking us out of our comfort zones and prompting us to reevaluate our priorities. In the crucible of suffering, we often find ourselves wrestling with questions we might otherwise ignore, questions about our purpose, our faith, and our relationship with God. These seasons of struggle can lead to significant growth as we learn to trust God more fully and surrender areas of our lives we've held back. It's important to acknowledge, though, that not all pain is easily explained or understood. There are tragedies and losses that seem senseless, and in those moments, we may never fully grasp why God allowed them to happen. The mystery of suffering is something that theologians and believers have wrestled with for centuries. And while we can find some comfort in the stories of Scripture, there are times when all we can do is hold on to the promise that God is with us, even when we don't understand. One of the most powerful aspects of the Christian faith is the belief that God can redeem even the darkest situations. The cross is the ultimate example of this truth. Jesus, the sinless Son of God, endured unimaginable pain and suffering, not because he deserved it, but because he chose to take on our sin and brokenness. Through his suffering, he brought about the greatest good, the redemption of humanity. This doesn't make our pain less real or less painful, but it does give us hope that God can bring good out of even the most difficult circumstances. When we trust God with our pain, we open ourselves to the possibility that he is doing something in us and through us that we can't yet see. In the midst of our pain, it's tempting to look for quick fixes or easy answers, but true healing and understanding often takes time. It may be months, years, or even a lifetime before we fully grasp how God has used our suffering for good. But in the waiting, we are called to trust in his character and his promises. Romans 8:28 reminds us that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. This verse doesn't mean that everything that happens to us is good, but it does mean that God is at work in every situation, weaving together a tapestry of grace, mercy, and redemption. Our pain is also something that has the potential to deepen our relationship with God. When we face trials, we're often more aware of our need for his presence and guidance. Pain can drive us to our knees, leading us to pray with sincerity and desperation we might not otherwise experience. It's in these moments of vulnerability that we often encounter God most deeply, not necessarily with all the answers we seek, but with a peace that surpasses understanding. As we learn to trust him in the midst of our pain, we find that our faith is strengthened, our hope renewed, and our love for God deepened. Yet, even as we seek to find purpose in our pain, we must remember that it's okay to grieve, to question, and to struggle. The Psalms are full of examples of people pouring out their hearts to God in the midst of suffering, and God welcomes our honesty. He is big enough to handle our doubts, our fears, and our frustrations. What matters is that we bring our pain to him, trusting that he is with us, even when we can't see the bigger picture. In the end, the purpose of our pain may not always be clear, but we can rest in the assurance that God is faithful, that he is with us in our suffering, and that he can use even our most difficult experiences for his glory and our good. Pain may be a part of our story, but it's not the end of it. With God, even our deepest hurts can become the very things he uses to bring about his purpose in our lives and in the world. As we walk through the trials of life, let's choose to lean into pain, trusting that God is at work and that he will use our suffering to reshape us, to draw us closer to him, and to make us instruments of his grace in the lives of others.